It is Wednesday the 17th. I think it's been a little over, maybe around 2 weeks since I made my last video. I've been going through quite a bit this past week. I actually lost a pretty close friend, Nick Hill, is a week from this past Saturday. He was in a motorcycle accident. I just want to take a moment to appreciate everything Nick did for made an impact in my life. I'll just put it this way: in high school, I knew barely anything about cars. Most I'd ever done was like swap a fuel pump on a Chevy pickup truck. And then junior year, I really started hanging out with this guy Nick, and he was always working on something with the LS in it. He had his Chevy pickup. His dad had a Denali that both had built motors. But anyways, that's who really got me into working on cars. And so, yeah, it's been pretty tough, especially since every time I work on the car, I think about him. But he's in a better place now, and there's a plan for everything. But anyways, Monday I went to Summit. I picked up a lot of the little parts I needed to finish up the swap. I got my receipt here. I'll just list most of it off for you. I got a tube adapter fitting that goes from the factory 5/16 steel hardline fuel feed that goes to 6AN. I got a Durali 17-inch reversible pusher puller electric fan. I will say this fan is thicker than I expected, but it does fit. It fits with probably 3/4 to an inch of clearance between the accessories. I can't say how it's going to do yet. It should be a pretty good fan. It's a 2-speed. I don't think I'm going to have a shroud for it, but yeah, it feels like a pretty nice piece of equipment. Yeah, there's that. I got tube and fin trans cooler. It's mounted on the car. I'll show y'all in a second. Fuel hose, gaskets, little fittings. I'm gonna put all these part numbers and everything on my parts list that I upload whenever I'm done. I'm just trying to get the bigger stuff. I got fuel pressure regulator. That's pretty much it. A bunch of little parts. I got a oil filter relocate bracket. This was 25 bucks. It didn't come with these fittings. I got these separate. But this is for 10AN, mounts wherever, fuel filter on the bottom. So you can keep that up out of the way from scraping or whatever. I think I mentioned before, Sicky does sell a oil filter relocation kit at a pretty good price, but I already had some 10AN hose and hose ends and stuff laying around, so literally this costed me like 40 bucks from what I already had. If you did it yourself, it probably costs around 100, 120, but after that, you know, you got your labor into it too. 180 bucks ain't bad for the Sicky one. All right, next thing, I believe I did mention, I was having problems with the trans Crossmember with the 4L65. I did find out that I had received a BK1 Crossmember. It's you can tell it's shorter right here on these legs. So I had already drilled holes in it trying to make it work. So I couldn't really return it and exchange it, which ended up helping me, but I'll get to that in a second. So I ended up paying 150 bucks for the BK2 Crossmember. You can see here, it's got much longer legs on it. As far as the there it goes, like this. As far as the height of them and everything, for the pinion angle, they're both the same. It's just the mounts are different for whatever reason. I guess BK1's different. This ended up not working either for the 4L65, which was really confusing because me, Jason Riddle, and I forgot the guy's name from Sicky I've been talking to, but we were all under the impression from internet forums that the T56 and 4L65 externally from the bell housing to the transmount was the same length. Don't trust the internet, first of all. That's all I'm going to say. After that wouldn't work, I dug deeper. I went a couple pages into that forum where somebody was asking about it, and there was finally a guy that said, basically told everyone to shut up, and that there was close to 5 inches of difference between the two, which sounds about right for what the issues I was having. I was able to make the BK1 Crossmember work by elongating these holes about an inch back. It's not pretty, but it'll work. Just use a little bit bigger washer and it shouldn't have any problem at all. I've already had it mocked up, the holes line up. I just got to get different bolts. The Sicky kit does not come with bolts. They're M12 by 1.5, and the factory bolts they got about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches of collar on them because the factory Crossmember is like, it's thick. So I will get to two reasons I didn't go ahead and modify the BK2. One, the BK1 was already modified, so I couldn't send it back. And two, to make this work, I would have had to cut quite a bit off the front of this because the front of this leg on the passenger side was getting wedged between the chassis and the transpan. So I would have had to drill new holes as well as cut it shorter. So 2 reasons. I can send this back. Sicky's taking care of me. $150. But yeah, if you do go 4L65, you will have to do this. I did talk to Sicky about it. He was surprised too. He said they don't get many auto swaps to test with in their shop, so he was just going off basically the same thing I read on the internet. I emailed it to him. I don't know if he's going to make adjustments to their Crossmember to work for both by just elongating these holes. But luckily, the drive shaft behind me, luckily they're the same either way. For 4L65 and 256, that is the same. I've already confirmed it, so no worry there. Alright, one other thing I got from Summit, I already had this filter from the big turbo. Air intake tube, 4-inch. It has the LS3, LS7 card style mass airflow sensor bone already welded on, which is pretty cool that you can just get that at Summit. At least for me, it's 20 minutes down the road like I've mentioned before. 2 reasons I did this. One, I'm going to swap over to the LS3 style mass air sensor. It just seems like it would flow better. I'll just show you all. I think I mentioned before I did order the mass airflow sensor from supposedly a 5.3 Chevy truck. The connector wasn't the same as what was on my harness, so I already put the connector on, had it ready, and then I decided not to use this one because the factory throttle body, and I'm pretty sure most all aftermarket throttle bodies, this right here is 4-inch. So you got a 4-inch coupler on here, 4-inch intake tube, but whenever you get to this, you have to bottleneck down to 3.5 inch, which is probably still plenty for the motor setup I got right now, but I didn't see any reason to not spend the extra. I think it'll be like $80 to swap to the LS3 MAF with the connector. I didn't see any reason not to spend the extra money and just get a better flowing intake from the get-go. Nothing wrong with this. I know 3.5 is probably big enough for quite a bit of power, but I just didn't, you know, whatever. So that's trash. Yeah, basically, I'll show you in a second. With the intake sitting on the engine, intake's over there right now. I'll 90 off, and then this is going to come out probably 10 to 12 inches or so, and then I'll have to 45 it back a little bit. And I'm just going to use silicone for those, silicone 90, silicone 45, and then I'll have an extra little piece of tubing, and then I got my cheap Spectre 4-inch filter. So that takes care of it for the cold air intake. As far as the 4L65 fitting in the trans tunnel, I mounted the trans, I jacked it up, and I got it where it would sit, and I had two issues. On the driver's side, there's I'll grab it real quick. There's this switch. It's basically your neutral safety switch, but it's a little more than that. It's got your, this goes on the shifter, shift rod, or whatever you would call it, and basically tells the ECU if you're in park, reverse, neutral, drive, first, whatever. So this corner right here was hitting on the frame of the car. It wasn't a whole lot, but it was enough that I'd have to pull it, especially after the connector's on, I'd have to pull it off. And I just took a hammer to that little area. I haven't retest fitted it, but I knocked it in quite a bit, and I think it'll work. And on the other side, there's the round connector. I think that's the main power connector and everything for the trans. It was, I never got it up to, I didn't want to break it, but I'm 90% sure it wouldn't fit. It was going to hit on the chassis about the same distance forward, a little bit, but on the opposite side, so I had to take a hammer to that too. And I was worried about where I'll just show you where the transcooler lines went in, but there's actually plenty of room for those. And I was able to use the truck factory dipstick. It fits fine, but let me crawl under. So I'm trying to see. Okay, so the BK2 Crossmember was getting wedged in between here. That's where the Crossmember mounts. Something to take note of: the Crossmember, if you don't notice it like I did, there's two holes that are not going to line up with your Crossmember, and that is because there's foil stickers over the other two holes. But let me see. You can kind of see right there where I took a hammer to the chassis. Not really, but, and then some up there. But you can see on top, there's room. Kind of hard to tell. And then I'm not sure what I'm going to do about a shifter yet. It's a wiring mess right now. I got a couple wires ran into the cab. This white one is tapped into an injector signal wire. This green one is for the serial data, which would go to your OBD2 port. This red one, I believe, is going to my fuse box. Something I had an issue with whenever I used the factory fuse box to go to this connector, one of the wires that got cut for the relay, I think it was the one that went to the switch, or the ignition key switch. Basically, I wasn't getting signal for I think it's one of these, no, it's this relay, and it powers all these fuses. So I wasn't getting signal with the key on or off for this relay to come on. So I'm gonna have basically a kill switch that gives power to the injectors, ignition, all that stuff. Not a big deal. trying to think. I got power steering line from Jason Riddle. It comes with a pressure reduction fitting so you don't blow out your rack. Kind of a mess out here. I'll just show y'all. Trying to do this one-handed. You can see it's not mounted all the way, but there's a good bit of room between the front accessories. I can't remember what else. I think that's about all I've done since my last video. Shifter options. Like how clean my car is. Shout out DMZ Rated. He's Jason Riddle. He does the power steering lines. It's kind of dark in here. Shifter options. I sold my manual trans to a kid with an auto, so I got his shifter. I think I'm gonna have trouble getting this to fit. I didn't know this before until he told me, but apparently with the manual, let me turn the flash on. So with the manual, right here, it steps up and the shifter mounts here. On the auto, it doesn't do that. He had that problem when he was trying to mount the shifter and it was sitting way too low. So that's not gonna sit at the right height either. So I got two options. I can cut this out and weld a plate down there and just mount to it and use the factory Genesis shifter, which, I mean, it's all right. I got it for free. It's about the only thing good about it. The Triptronic's not gonna work. I won't be able to put it into first manually. I would have to do some kind of jumping with the wiring to get it to think that the brake is on, so I can just shift from park and everything. Sorry about that. I'd have to wire something up to make it think I was hitting the brake so I could shift from park to reverse and all that. So I don't think I'm going to end up using this Genesis shifter, even though it's free, you know, whatever. My other option only is really I can go with an aftermarket Hearst, TCI, something like that, which I think is going to be what I end up doing. It's an extra $350 or so, give or take, depending on which one you get, but I think it'll be worth it. Get like a cool ratchet shifter or something that I can manually go first, second, drive, you know. I was just hoping not to have too much invested into this auto because I do plan to manual swap later, but I can always get my money back for a Hearst shifter for the most part. I think that's pretty much it for now, guys. I guess I can show you all my fuel return setup. Alright, so basically what I did, let me unplug this and get it out of the way. Damn, one-handed shit. So this is a -6AN bulkhead fitting. Basically it's got a little lip right here, and then you use Teflon washers on both sides and then a nut on the bottom. It's like really long on the other side. So I drilled a hole and then I just 6AN, that's going to be my fuel return. I got submersible fuel hose on the bottom that goes down into the fuel basket. I do not like where I ended up drilling this hole. I didn't really see any other option over here. On the bottom of this, there's shit over here and everything. So it's kind of hard. I didn't like where this ended up, but it's going to have to work. One reason I didn't like where it ended up, if I can find it, this hose right here is the purge evap or whatever, and I literally can't get the hose on that connector with this here. The fuel feed still sits perfect, so we're good there. Luckily enough, it is just evap, and I'm not going to be running evap, but I still have to vent the tank somehow. So I think I may be able to cut this off, cut it back, and plug it and drill another hole and basically do the same thing with the 6A in and vent it to the outside. But it'll work for now. If you don't feel like messing with that, Jason Riddle does sell, or DMZ rated, does sell a modified VK2 fuel basket that already comes with a DW 400 pump in it, I believe. 650 bucks. I feel like it's well worth it if you are going to be pushing big power, because you're going to have to do the pump anyways, and then all the little fittings and stuff, plus the modification. You fuck it up, you know, that's not good. So yeah, we're getting pretty close. Only things I didn't get at Summit that I need are fuel line and the transcooler lines. And the only reason was I didn't know exactly how long I needed until I put my tube adapter fitting on. This is that fitting I was talking about. It's kind of, that's just rust from falling out of my socket. But this is the factory fuel line. This is the evap line. But you cut it with the tubing cutter. You slip this on, you slip a little collet on, and then you tighten this down, and you got your 6AN fuel feed. And then the transfer, it's not really mounted, but it's pretty big. 6AN, where's 6AN on the bottom, and that's going to go to the trans. So it's coming along. Maybe next week or two should be running. I'm going to cut open these soon, paint them and modify them. Trans under there. Yeah, that's it, guys. Hope this helps somebody, especially with the Crossmember modification. Excuse me. Crossmember modification with the 4L65. That's pretty much it. I appreciate y'all watching, and y'all have a good week. Y'all stay safe. And if you are gonna go out and do some wild shit in your car, just be careful, guys. All right. One thing I didn't mention, I'll show y'all my sticker. One sec. This kid, Nick, he loved Chevy trucks. So this is his sticker. 19 years old. But anyways, this 5.3 I got here, I'm gonna flip the camera around. I know I mentioned before I had a 6.0 LQ4 that I was gonna build and drop in later. Plans have changed, put it that way. Rusted cylinder walls, dirty, gross. Gonna take some work, but I bought that from Nick in 2016, and it's basically sat here since then. I was gonna swap it into my Chevy pickup, but it never happened. I sold the truck, and that sat there. So that's why plans have changed. I still got that. It's like one of the only tangible things I have from my buddy, and I want it to live on. So I sold the LQ4, and that is going to be the the motor going into the Genesis, basically. I know it needs some work. The bores having rust on them isn't a huge deal, because I'm going to have it bored out to LS1 specs, and I think, not 100% sure yet, but I think I'm going to stroke it to a 383, and it should be a pretty mean little motor. But that's pretty, that's about it. I just wanted him to live on through my car, basically. That was a motor that he bought for his truck, and then he ended up getting a deal on a motor that had a cam and stuff already in it. So he had that one laying there, and I was like, I asked him if he wanted to sell it. I got it for like 200 bucks. It came with heads, pistons, everything. I still got the heads. I did some home porting on them when I was like 17 and dumb, but they're only 706s, so whatever. I think I can push 450 with the 383. I've been checking out numbers from other people, but should be a pretty mean little motor. And if it makes 400, 450 naturally aspirated, I'll be happy. I think I may spray it with a little bit of nitrous, but who knows. That's pretty much it. Appreciate y'all watching. Y'all be safe and subscribe if you like the content. Hopefully this helps somebody. I didn't go really into detail on this video, but I'm just going to basically tell you what I did and show you. If you have a different PCM, you probably won't have this problem. But if you have a blue-green connector PCM from 03, 04 or something to 07 Chevy trucks, you will have to use a drive-by-wire pedal, which means there's actually an electrical connection instead of a cable for the throttle. There's a couple of the blue-green ECUs that have the idle air control driver in them. Most of them do not, but you can verify with the part number on the ECU. But anyways, so I was basically stuck with the pedal that came with my engine. It's a big, bulky truck pedal. It kind of kicks out to the side, and it was really long, so it was hitting the trans tunnel, and it was also just way too long. So, and there was another thing, there's nowhere to mount a firewall mount pedal to in the Gen. There's no flat space at all. Pretty much has to be floor mount or do what I did, but I'm gonna flip the camera around and show you what I did. So, let's see. I welded a plate right here to make it flat. I drilled holes in it, and then I ran a bolt through and basically welded it to the back so that it's a stud for the pedal to mount on. I also shortened the arm. Like I said, it kind of kicked out and came out here and was like rubbing right here. I shortened the arm. I just cut the middle section out and welded it back up. As I was welding it, the plastic foot pedal itself melted, so I just cut this out of sheet steel and, you know, welded it on. It doesn't look bad. It functions. I might throw some sort of grip tape or something over there, but I had to cut this out. That could be avoided if this angle was a little better on the pedal. The reason my angle got messed up was because I was using the plastic pedal and it wasn't quite as big, and then whenever that melted off, I had to use this, and it was just scraping on the carpet. There's the plastic pedal. It just melted right off. But that's pretty much it. I just welded a plate up there. It is welded in, I think, 4 different points. One part is welded to this, there's like a metal ring that goes around the steering column. One down here that goes on this tab that was for the original accelerator. And then I got these 2 corners up here. And it's pretty sturdy. It's not going anywhere. I don't remember what gauge steel that is, but I got the last bit of stuff I needed from Summit today. A few packages coming in the mail this week with radiator hoses, I can't remember, serpentine belt, just little things that Summit would have had to order anyways, and I could get them a little cheaper online. So I'm gonna try to make some videos tomorrow. I got a B&M Pro Ratchet shifter. It's pretty sweet. I'm gonna show mounting that in the Genesis. I'm not sure how well it's gonna fit the center console, but it's a pretty sweet shifter, and it makes me not feel so bad about getting the auto in the first place. Last things I have to do, I have to mount my fuel pressure regulator, run my return line to the tank. I have to run, where is it at? It's under here. I have to run my fuel line off of this to the fuel pressure regulator and then to the rail. And then I have to run trans cooler lines from the trans up to my cooler. I got those fuel lines and cooler lines today. That was one of the last few things I needed. I had to get some intake manifold bolts. But other than that, it should be running and driving this week. Another thing to mention, if you look, this is the 2.0 radiator, and it is, I mean, a ½ inch thick, maybe 3/4 at the most. It's not very thick, and people say, I mean, a lot of them are boosted, but people say the 2.0 radiator wasn't enough. I did order a 3.8 Mishimoto radiator from Summit. They had the special order it though, so I couldn't pick it up and take it home today. But I think this will be plenty for now, as long as I don't beat on it too hard. And I mean, it is just a stock 5.3, so, you know, but I think that's pretty much it for now, and that's all I can really think of. I'm gonna try, I haven't gotten any update on my GenCoupe.com forum post. I haven't, maybe the submission didn't go through. I'm gonna try to rewrite it and resubmit it and see what kind of response I get. I don't know if it just hasn't been approved because admins are slacking, or if it's if it just didn't submit through whenever I tried to submit it. But that's pretty much it. I appreciate y'all watching. Like always, subscribe if you want to see more. After the swap's done, I'm probably going to make a video series on what's coming next of the car, and that's basically mainly going to be chassis modifications, and getting my chassis itself set up for my goals, and I will reveal those later. But anyways, if y'all like the videos, please subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, genocide_coupe. You can hit me up on Facebook, Jordan Henley, if you have any questions. You can also message me on Instagram. But yeah, appreciate y'all watching.